All right, let's dive into something truly extraordinary today. Imagine a book that didn't just top bestseller lists, but just exploded.
Yeah,
Selling millions in days, sparking global headlines, sending shockwaves through one of the world's most famous families.
absolutely.
Today, we're tearing into that very phenomenon, Prince Harry's memoir, Spare. It's more than just a book, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. It's this meticulously crafted narrative, ghost-written by J.R. Mowringer, no less.
Right, and the audiobook, narrated by Harry himself, that adds a whole other layer, doesn't it? That direct emotion. I'm genuinely curious to unpack what makes this tick.
And our deep dive today is really designed to try and cut through all the noise around it. Spare, it came out January 10th, 2023.
Yep.
And it just became the fastest-selling nonfiction book ever for Penguin Random House.
Yeah.
Like over 1.4 million copies sold in the U.S., Canada, and U.K. on day one.
Wow.
Just incredible. And the title itself, Spare, points straight to that old aristocratic idea, needing an heir and a spare.
Right, to secure the line.
Exactly. And Harry describes himself as the shadow, the support, the plan B, even like a spare part, thinking he might be needed for a kidney or blood or, bone marrow for William.
That's intense.
It is. And he stated his goal wasn't to bring down the monarchy, but actually to save it. Particularly, he says, for future spares, like his brother's younger kids. And he claims the book is accurate and wholly truthful.
Okay. So our mission today is to explore the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from Spare and all the commentary it sparked.
Yeah, there's a lot.
We'll unpack the key values Harry talks about, from his childhood trauma right through to the most controversial claims, and look at the intense public and critical reaction. The goal is really to help you become truly well-informed on this remarkable, definitely personal, and highly debated piece of modern history.
So let's start right where the book sort of starts, with that core idea. Life as the spare. He talks about understanding his role almost from birth. He says the heir and the spare. There was no judgment about it, but also no ambiguity. I was the shadow, the support, the plan B.
Wow.
I was brought into the world in case something happened to Willie. I took no offense. I felt nothing about it. He compares succession to, like, the weather or the seasons, just a fact of life.
So an initial acceptance, like this is just my job, my role.
Kind of, yeah. Almost seeing it as, honor and love initially.
But that acceptance must have been profoundly tested by his mother Diana's death. He was only 12. What did he share about that trauma?
Oh, his account is incredibly raw. He remembers learning about it early in the morning, his father telling him.
Right.
And the funeral itself, that was another ordeal. Harry claims the idea of him and William walking behind the coffin horrified some adults, especially his uncle Charles Spencer. There were apparently suggestions William should walk alone, but Harry insists he wanted to walk with his brother.
Yeah, I remember those images. So powerful.
And the lasting impact. This is fascinating. He reveals that for 10 whole years after she died, he believes she might actually be in hiding.
No way. Really?
Yeah, hiding to escape the press. And he alleges William had similar thoughts, which, speaks volumes about the psychological impact of it all.
Gosh, that's incredibly raw, that whole period. And that search for closure just went on for so long.
It really did. Harry later says the official investigations felt simplistic and absurd. He questioned why the paparazzis weren't jailed, hinted at corruption and cover-ups. He says both he and William planned to ask for the investigation to be reopened, but they were talked out of it.
Right.
And then there's that really personal, and as he calls it, ill-conceived decision. He had a driver take him through the Ponte Loma tunnel at 60 miles per hour.
Just to experience it.
Yeah, hoping for closure, I guess. But he said it just brought more pain. The totally understandable impulse, maybe, but yeah. He also mentions later trying to connect with her through a woman claiming to have powers.
Wow. Okay, so moving from that deep grief into his teenage years, the pressure seemed to manifest differently then, didn't it? Some, self-destructive behavior. He's pretty unflinching about it.
He really is. He talks openly about trying cocaine when he was 17, says it wasn't very fun, but it made me feel different.
Right.
And he also recounts taking magic mushrooms at a party, actually at Courtney Cox's house, back in 2016.
Seriously?
Yeah, led to hallucinations where he was apparently talking to a bin in a toilet. You can read it as sensational, but maybe it points to this search for escape.
Yeah, trying to cope with the scrutiny, perhaps?
Possibly.
Yeah.
The book also details losing his virginity, he calls it an inglorious episode, in a field behind a pub with an older woman.
That's quite the list of admissions for a royal memoir. It really feels like he left no stone unturned.
Pretty much. He also talks about a more aggressive incident, getting drunk, trying to pick fights, getting thrown out of a bar, and then actually slapping his bodyguard.
Oh,
Yeah, he says he swung on him, slapped his head, then slapped him again because he was determined to hurt him. It paints a picture of some real turmoil.
definitely a fraught period. And this time also includes one of the most talked about bits, the Nazi uniform incident.
Ah, yes, the 2005 fancy dress party. Huge controversy.
Yeah.
And Harry's explicit claim in the book is that William and Catherine actually suggested he wear that uniform over a pilot one.
Right. And that's a claim that, as you said, has been pretty heavily disputed, hasn't it?
It has, yeah, by sources close to the family. We'll probably circle back to the whole veracity thing later.
Okay. Then came his military service, another really defining chapter he details, quite frankly.
Yes, his tours in Afghanistan. He states he killed 25 Taliban members.
Right. That specific number.
Yeah. And he writes he didn't view them as people at the time, but as chess pieces removed from the board. He adds the number didn't give him satisfaction, but no shame either.
A very stark admission.
Very. And it offers a glimpse into, maybe the psychological coping mechanisms in conflict, but it also, unsurprisingly, sparked a massive global debate and a lot of controversy right when the book dropped.
Absolutely. And speaking of deeply felt emotions and controversy, let's shift to the family dynamics described in Spare, especially with Charles and Camilla.
Okay, yeah. This section really reveals some deep, long-standing tensions. Harry says that initially both he and William agreed to welcome Camilla, but on one condition, that Charles wouldn't marry her.
Which of course he did.
Right. And Harry acknowledges, his father was finally going to be with a woman he loved. But then his account shifts quite dramatically later on.
How so?
He alleges Camilla sacrificed him on her personal PR altar, claims she leaked minute details of a private chat she had with William.
Wow, that's a strong accusation.
Very. He also claims Charles and Camilla leaked stories about his teenage drug use back in 2002, supposedly to make Charles look like a concerned father and boost their own image. In Harry's telling, William felt huge guilt and torment over their dad's affair, and Harry sees Camilla as playing a pivotal role in his parents' marriage breakdown. He even says Camilla turned his old bedroom at Clarence's house into her dressing room basically the moment he moved out.
So it paints this picture of, shifting loyalties, suspicion, maybe even a deliberate PR war playing out behind the scenes.
That's certainly the impression he gives. A feeling of being used, perhaps?
And that sense of shifting allegiances seems to extend even to William's wedding. Harry's description of being best man is interesting.
It is. He calls the official best man role a barefaced lie.
Really?
Yeah. Says James Mead and Thomas Van Straubenzee actually gave this speech at the reception. Harry felt it was right because he might have said something wildly inappropriate, hinting at issues even back then. And then there's that very widely shared detail about suffering from a frostbitten, todger is the word he uses at the wedding.
Right, from the North Pole trip.
Exactly. And being told to use Elizabeth Arden cream, which reminded him of his mother's scent. He also claims William was tipsy on rum just hours before the ceremony.
These are such intimate, almost jarring details next to the royal pageantry.
Absolutely deliberate, I think, showing the, very human, sometimes awkward reality behind the facade. It's definitely not all glamour.
And the book famously goes into the tensions between Meghan and Catherine. What's Harry's side of those stories?
Well, he confirms the disagreement over the flower girl dresses before his wedding. Says Catherine thought Charlotte's dress needed a total remake.
Okay.
Meghan was apparently dealing with her father's health issues then, and was told Charlotte cried because the dress was too big, long, and baggy. Harry claims he found Meghan sobbing later.
Oh, dear.
Though he does say Catherine meant no harm and came by the next day with flowers and a card to apologize.
Right.
He also recounts Meghan supposedly telling Catherine, who'd recently given birth, that she must have baby brain because of their hormones. Meghan apparently apologized for that later over tea. But crucially, Harry blames his father and stepmother's household for leaking these stories, frames it all as part of this bigger media battle.
So much friction. The deepest rift he describes seems to be that alleged physical altercation at Nottingham Cottage in 2019. That's more than just a disagreement.
Oh, absolutely. It's a shocking account.
Oh.
He claims William came over complaining about Meghan, calling her difficult, rude, abrasive. Harry says he felt William was just parroting the press narrative.
Okay, so it started verbally?
Yes, but escalated. Harry alleges William grabbed me by the collar, ripping my necklace, and he knocked me to the floor. I landed on the dog's bowl, which cracked under my back, the pieces cutting into me.
Goodness, that's quite an image.
It is. Harry says he didn't hit back. William left, apparently looking regretful, and Harry says the first thing he did was call his therapist. Meghan was apparently terribly sad when she found out. It's a stark depiction of a relationship, really, a breaking point.
And the strain didn't ease, even after Prince Philip's funeral in 2021.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
Harry describes a tense meeting afterwards with Charles and William. He remembers Charles pleading, "Please, boys, don't make my final years a misery."
Wow.
He calls William, "my dear brother," my arch nemesis in this period.
Mm.
Notes William's alarming baldness, saying his resemblance to Diana was fading.
Ouch. That's pointed.
Very. He says during a walk, William asked why Harry hadn't come to them earlier, told him to take his complaints about the Megxit deal with Granny. Then Harry recounts William lunging and saying, "I swear to you now on Mummy's life that I just want you to be happy."
On Diana's life.
Yeah. But Harry says he didn't believe him. It's just an incredibly raw, sad sequence. Makes you wonder how trust could erode so completely between brothers.
As Harry tried to find his own way, the book does open up about his personal life, his romance with Meghan. Some very human, kind of awkward details there.
Yes, quite candid. He talks about their first date, including wetting his pants on a boat with no toilet, and regretting searching online for Meghan's sex scenes and suits.
Yeah.
But importantly, he credits Meghan with pushing him towards therapy.
Okay.
Yeah, after he got, as he puts it, disproportionately, slothfully angry during the disagreement, she apparently told him she wouldn't tolerate that behavior.
Yeah.
He sees that as a real turning point for him.
So her influence was significant there. And his path to fatherhood, he describes that with some quite unique symbolic interpretations.
He does. He mentions two signs he saw. One was Meghan singing to seals, and he claims they sang back.
Heels. Okay.
And the other was Meghan putting the positive pregnancy tests on his bedside table, right next to a box containing some of his mother's hair.
Right, connecting it back to Diana.
Exactly. He felt like, right, let's see what Mummy can do with this situation. He thanked the Selkies and Mummy when they got the news. They announced the pregnancy at Princess Eugenie's wedding in October 2018.
Timing.
Yeah. He also mentions using laughing gas himself during Archie's birth for calm. And then there's the incredibly poignant, heartbreaking account of Meghan's miscarriage in 2020.
Oh, that must have been devastating.
Terribly. He describes leaving the hospital with their unborn child in a tiny package and burying it secretly under a banyan tree. Just incredibly intimate, vulnerable moments to share.
Absolutely. Then comes the decision to step back. Megxit. Another huge, contentious part of the story. A real break from the traditional path.
A massive break. And Harry claims his father, Charles, actually feared Meghan's popularity would overshadow him. Said Charles didn't like William and Catherine getting too much publicity either.
Interesting dynamic.
He expresses real frustration over losing state-funded security, especially comparing his situation to Prince Andrew's, who kept his security despite the accusations against him.
Yeah, that comparison was made a lot.
And he frames the Sandringham summit, where their future roles were decided, as a fix. He calls the key aides involved 3 middle-aged white men, the bee, the wasp, and the fly.
Those nicknames, the bee, the wasp, the fly, definitely imply something negative, don't they?
Absolutely. He accuses them of a bold Machiavellian maneuver, suggests they were buzzing around, interfering, working against him. He also shares he was refused permission to be buried next to his mother at Elthorpe and chose Frogmore as his burial site instead.
Wow. Okay, so the book comes out, and the reaction, as you'd expect, was just as dramatic as the content, wasn't it? Commercially huge, but critically complex.
Exactly. Commercially, an absolute juggernaut. Fastest-selling nonfiction for Penguin Random House, like we said. Over 3.2 million copies globally in the first week alone. Just massive.
But the reviews?
Very mixed. Sharply divided, actually. Some praised the openness, the vulnerability. Others really criticized it for being TMI, too much information, too many personal details. And many pointed out the perceived hypocrisy, demanding privacy while revealing so much about his family.
And one of the biggest backlashes came from his admission about killing 25 Taliban fighters in Afghanistan. That sparked global outrage.
It truly did. In Afghanistan, some on social media called him a murderer, a crusader. A Taliban spokesperson called his comments a microcosm of the trauma Afghans experienced under occupation forces. Another Taliban commander called Harry a big-mouth loser. An official said criminals like Harry will be brought to the court table.
Mm.
Anis Haqqani criticized the chess pieces analogy, saying, the ones you killed were not chess pieces, they were humans.
And the reaction wasn't just confined to Afghanistan, right? Military figures and commentators back home had strong words, too.
Oh, definitely. Security concerns were raised immediately. Andrew Neil asked, how stupid can you be? Colonel Tim Collins said Harry had turned against the other family, the military.
Right.
Colonel Richard Kemp worried the comments would fuel jihadist propaganda and harm the UK. Lord West called Harry very stupid, warning about security for the Invictus Games. Some retired officers even suggested it might show he was processing trauma, maybe PTSD. A former Royal Marine claimed he had to be evacuated from Kabul because of potential reprisals. Even the Iranian government condemned it as a war crime.
Just immense fallout. How did Harry respond to all that criticism?
Well, he defended himself. He asserted that talking about his experiences was crucial for his healing journey, saying silence has been the least effective remedy.
Okay.
He denied he was boasting about the number and blamed pre-publication leaks for taking quotes out of context. So you see this fundamental clash. His view of therapeutic candor versus critics seeing it as irresponsible.
The book also put mental health discussions front and center, which is something Harry has advocated for. But even that drew accusations of hypocrisy.
It did, yeah, it got complicated. Sources close to Charles and Catherine reportedly called him a hypocrite for, in their view, undermining their mental health in the book.
How so?
By discussing Charles's tough time at Gordonston School, or Catherine's state after giving birth. One source said, it is hypocritical for him to talk about other people's mental health while doing that. Sources close to the late Queen Elizabeth also claimed his repeated ambushing of the family negatively impacted her health. And Caroline Flack's former publicist criticized him for using media reports about her death, urging him to consider the pain caused to the Queen.
Okay, so beyond the emotional reactions, perhaps one of the biggest issues that emerged was the book's actual accuracy, the veracity of the claims. Harry himself kind of preempted this, didn't he?
He did. He included that line, whatever the cause, my memory is my memory. It does what it does, and there's just as much truth in what I remember as there is in so-called objective facts.
My memory is my memory. That's quite a statement when presenting a memoir as fact.
Exactly. And it became very relevant as discrepancies started piling up. For instance, that claim about Camilla leaking the conversation with William. Sources close to her denied it, blamed an aide instead.
Right, and the Nazi uniform story.
Also disputed. Former royal aides and friends said that version of events, with William and Catherine suggesting it, just wasn't the recollection at the time.
And there were other factual points questioned too, weren't there? Smaller details, but they added up.
Quite a few, yeah. His memory of finding out about the Queen Mother's death at Eton was contradicted by records showing he was skiing in Switzerland.
Oh.
His claim of learning about Queen Elizabeth's death from the BBC website was countered by reports his father told him personally. Even Meghan's outfit on their first meeting, he said black sweatshirt and jeans. She'd previously said a blue dress.
Details matter.
They do. The flower girl dress argument also had counterclaims, with staff suggesting Meghan had aired grievances and had left Catherine's staff knowing she was upset.
Right.
There were also anecdotes painting Meghan's management style in a difficult light, like bringing an ice cream van but only for her own crew, making generosity feel performative.
Yeah.
And Jason Nauf, the former communications secretary, did file that formal bullying complaint against Meghan.
So all these conflicting accounts really underscore that my memory is my memory point, raising big questions about truth, perception, and narrative.
Absolutely. It makes you question how we process memory, especially under intense scrutiny.
Now, let's touch on the audiobook, because listening to it, with Harry narrating, is a different experience than reading the text, isn't it?
Oh, completely different. His narration across all 15 hours adds this undeniable nuance. As you said earlier, you hear the pauses, the emphasis, the emotion in his voice. It gives it immense weight.
You really hear the story in full, as they say.
Exactly. And parts are genuinely not an easy listen,
Yeah.
especially the accounts of Diana's death and the aftermath. It's heartbreaking hearing it in his voice.
But despite that emotional pull, some critics felt that as he got older, some of his complaints sounded, well, maybe less relatable.
Precisely. That was a common observation. This perceived lack of relatability, even with the raw emotion, seemed to cost him some support.
How so?
Well, the tone, especially when discussing his family, sometimes came across as loaded with venom, as one critic put it. Even if he was trying to sound normal, the grievances maybe didn't land sympathetically for everyone.
Hmm.
It shows how the medium itself really shapes the message.
Definitely. So wrapping this all up, where does this leave us? We've journeyed through Spare, this incredibly personal, controversial book. Harry got this huge platform to tell his story, his way, right down to the sound of his voice.
Yeah.
From a child's grief to these really complex family dynamics played out on a global stage. This deep dive shows how one person's narrative can truly reflect, maybe even reshape how the world sees things. But it sparks so much debate.
And it raises a really important question, I think, for all of us. When any public figure shares their truth, especially acknowledging my memory is my memory, what does that actually mean for how we understand events, how we understand relationships, history, the sheer amount of detail in Spare, the conflicting stories we've talked about, the raw emotion? It forces you to think not just about what happened, but how it's remembered,
Yeah.
how it's presented, and ultimately what gets believed.
So ultimately, this deep dive leaves you, the listener, to consider, what is the real cost of telling your story so publicly, especially when it's tied up with history, family, and just immense public expectation?
Yeah.
It leaves us with a provocative thought, maybe. In this world saturated with information and all these competing narratives flying around, how do we actually distinguish between personal truth, perceived reality, and, objective facts? And what does this whole ongoing saga tell us about celebrity, royalty, and personal freedom today?